Hello everyone, welcome to LewisFiction and welcome back to the Spectacular Spider-Man Season 5. This is the series finale to the whole entire Spectacular Spider-Man series. If you have not seen the rest of the series, make sure you go back before you watch this. But for those of you who are caught up and who are ready for the finale, here is Episode 13. Episode 13, The Night of Love and Grief. We open our final episode with Peter swinging through the city in his costume. He is narrating the past events of all 5 seasons, highlighting key moments that led him to this point. He points out times where he could have done things differently. Maybe helped Harry a little bit better when he was taking the green, or maybe how he could have made things work with Gwen, or how he ended up treating Liz. Or maybe he should have been there for Aunt May sooner, or not have been so naive when it came to Miles Warren. There are so many things he could have done differently. He thinks back to Emma Edwards, Captain Stacy. So many people suffered because of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man wasn't quick enough, strong enough. Who else has to suffer because of him? Because of the human error that plagues every decision he's ever made? During all of this, however, Peter will be getting photos as he starts to get back into photography, following his new job at Frontline. But he'll still be thinking to himself. All he can do is focus on the future, focus on the now, make the right choice. His biggest threat awaits him. He has to save everyone. However, all this Norman Osborn stuff, it's set him back. His mindset has changed. Norman does know who he is, and he knows pretty much everyone he loves, including Mary Jane Watson. He knows it's a scare tactic, but if there's one of his villains that would go to extreme lengths to hurt Peter Parker, it would be Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. He's insane. As Peter is swinging, however, he will notice a crime going down in the corner of his eye. He swings down to deal with it. However, he notices something odd. They're all wearing pumpkin masks. After clearing it up, he realizes Norman just isn't back. He wants to take New York back for his own. As this revelation comes to the forefront, we cut to Norman Osborn, who sips a drink and places the glass down on the desk in front of him rather firmly. Emily walks in and asks if he wants anything, and Norman says no. Emily tells him he looks stressed, and Norman says he's fine, and to just leave him. She leaves him, and Norman thinks back to Spider-Man. His whole plan went out the window as soon as he realized who Spider-Man was. Norman's morality and ethically driven side took over. The side of him that cared enough about his son also had empathy for Peter Parker. His plan to kill Spider-Man so he could have reign above New York as the big man, replacing all those that had come before him, had failed for a second time. Because as long as Spider-Man exists, there also exists a chance that his plan fails the same way it did at the end of Season 2 all of those years ago. Except now there's a benefactor. He knows something that he didn't know back then. And that's Spider-Man's identity, and that makes things all the more difficult for him. The Goblin Nation is back, but how long is it before the masked menace intervenes once again? Norman contemplates as he looks towards his window, which faced the city. He wondered how long it would take before his opposition struck. We cut to MJ. She sat on the sofa at Peter's house reading a book. It's on acting. We get quite a funny scene as she tries to pull faces to copy expressions from the book, as she's trying to learn before she goes to acting school, when Peter lands at the bottom of the stairs, startling her. She turns around swiftly and tells Peter that she hates how he never comes through the front door. She can never tell if he's in the house or not. Peter says that's just one of the perks of living with him. MJ asks Peter how the heck Aunt May hasn't guessed he's Spider-Man yet. Surely she has her suspicions. MJ tells Peter that if she lived here for 2 weeks and didn't know, she'd find out straight away. Peter shrugs his shoulders and tells her that she's just more observant than most. However, Peter is stressed. The look on his face tells MJ everything she needs to know. As the conversation turns somber, Peter sits on the sofa next to her, and she asks what's wrong. As she puts her arm around him, Peter tells her he knows. MJ asks, who knows? And Peter says Norman Osborn knows who he is. MJ looks down and doesn't know what to say. Peter tells her that he confronted him. He wanted to make sure for certain. And he knows. MJ asks, what now? And Peter says Norman wouldn't do anything unless he got in his way. As Peter says that, however, a news flash comes on the telly of multiple accounts around the city of people in pumpkin masks like the finale of Season 2. MJ asks if this was his plan all along. To get Spider-Man out of the picture, to enact this takeover of New York. Peter says it seems that way. Peter says that Norman has never really been the type to be involved in the criminal underworld, or at least that's what he thought. But I guess when you think about it, Norman Osborn is power hungry. And the more of New York he can control on the surface or underneath is the merrier. Peter says he doesn't know what to do, because if he gets involved, it puts her in danger. It puts Aunt May in danger. It puts everyone he knows in danger. MJ tells him he can't possibly think like that. MJ locks eyes with Peter and speaks directly at him. She tells him that if he goes in with that mindset, then the general public and civilians will get hurt because of Norman Osborn. It doesn't matter what happens to her. People will die if Peter doesn't stop him. Peter looks down and says he doesn't want to lose her. MJ grabs him by his chin and pulls his face to meet hers, as she says it's not going to. She kisses Peter, and Peter relaxes. As they pull away, Peter says she's right. He's Spider-Man, and that's the right thing to do. He has to stop Norman Osborn. Peter decides, just like the last episode, instead of waiting for Goblin's next move, maybe it's best if he takes this head on and confront Norman where he least expects it, the Osborn mansion. Take the fight to him. Don't wait for him to take the fight to Peter. However, on his swing over there, Peter encounters more Goblin outposts and crime activity. Peter can't ignore it, so swings down to deal with it. During the fight, he manages to web up all the thugs. However, a few apartment blocks were severely damaged in the process. A man collapses to his knees outside of one of the apartments, crying as he's lost everything. Peter approaches him and tells him it'll be okay. There's a place that he can stay. Spider-Man swings the man over to Feast and drops him off. Spider-Man enters Feast and tells Aunt May that this is a man who needs a place to stay, and if there's any room for him. May will tell Spider-Man that there isn't really, but they'll try and make room. They're already pretty packed up from the past year gone. Spider-Man nods in acknowledgement. However, as Spider-Man hands the person over, the man grins very slyly, and a smirk turns into a laugh as he turns to Spider-Man. Peter's spider sense goes berserk. What's happening? As he pulls out a pumpkin bomb from his pocket, Spider-Man webs the bomb away from the man and May as it explodes in his face, sending him back. People in Feast start screaming as they head for the doors. However, they're all locked. They can't get out. Peter stumbles to his feet as he looks towards Aunt May, and then the lights flicker off. It's dark. People scramble as Peter tells everyone to stay calm. And then the lights flicker back on as none other than the Green Goblin appears in front of Spider-Man, face to face with each other once again. Spider-Man clenches his fist as the Goblin hops down off his glider, telling him he fell right into his trap. Peter asks the Goblin to take this somewhere else, away from all of these people. The Goblin says no, as he laughs. He tells Peter this is exactly where he wants to be. He tells Peter that he said to stay out of his way, but he didn't. And this is his consequence. The Goblin turns to May and says even May is here for the show. May whispers underneath her quivering voice as she realizes. Peter? Peter turns to lock eyes with May, telling her it's going to be okay. All of this is happening as people are still scrambling to try and get the doors open. They don't even pay attention to what is going on. The Goblin speaks up, saying that there is no use in leaving. There are bombs tied to every corner of this place, and they will detonate if Spider-Man doesn't do what he says. They have about 15 minutes on them. Peter breathes heavily and tells the Goblin he's bluffing. Goblin snarkily leans in with one eye and says, "Am I?" as a chuckle lightly leaves his mouth. He tells Peter to surrender, or else it doesn't end well for any of them. Spider-Man drops to his knees. The Goblin takes heavy steps towards him as Aunt May's fist clenches as she grits her teeth. The Goblin takes one hand and lifts up Spider-Man's chin to meet his face. The Goblin tells him he's lost as he chuckles. And in a quick lapse of motion, the Goblin turns to May and swoops her up as he hops on his glider and smashes through the ceiling window and away. Spider-Man quickly leaps up and tells him to get back here as he webs after him. Spider-Man chases the Goblin a couple of blocks across the city as he kicks him off his glider and catches Aunt May. Spider-Man lands on top of a building and places Aunt May down as the Goblin tumbles and lands on the same building. He gets up, laughing. He throws Goblin bats towards Spider-Man as he leaps and dodges them, stopping them from hitting May in the process. Spider-Man fights the Goblin hand-to-hand on the rooftop. The Goblin seems faster and stronger than before, outmaneuvering Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is also stronger. All the battles he's faced since his last encounter with Norman have made him stronger. Norman whacks Peter around the face, knocking the corner of his mask off. He then delivers a blow to the jaw which knocks Peter back. Norman picks Peter up by the throat and activates blades on the side of his arm and tells him this is his end, and he's going to kill him, and then he's going to kill May, and then he's going to kill Mary Jane. The Goblin laughs sadistically. However, during this time where Peter is helpless, Aunt May sneaks up to the back of the Goblin, picking up the closest object to her that she could find, and shouts to stay away from her nephew as she clobbers the Goblin around the back of the head with it. However, in retaliation, the Goblin drops Spider-Man and lashes out at Aunt May, hitting her across the face of the building with his arm. Peter shouts at the goblin. As he turns back to face Peter, he doesn't hold back and delivers one gut-wrenching punch to his jaw, sending the goblin back. However, the goblin comes back at Peter, and a final showdown between the two of them ensues, the goblin and Peter both going full force. Peter, however, doesn't hold back as he usually would, telling the goblin that he should kill him for hurting her. As the hand-to-hand combat eventually comes to an end, Peter topples the goblin and comes out on top. Peter is beating down on the goblin's face as his mask rips to see Norman underneath, barely conscious. Peter has him by the collar and realizes what he's doing. He drops him and rushes over to see if May is okay. May says that she's okay, and Peter looks down. The goblin didn't just swipe her, he swiped her with his blade. "You're bleeding," Peter will say to May. May says it's fine, it's just sore. Peter tells her he needs to get her up, as he starts to panic. He says they're going to get her to a hospital. May tells him no. Peter says yes, they're getting her to a hospital. His eyes start to swell. Peter says no. He's forgetting something. The bombs at Feast. He needs to make sure those people are okay. Peter says he's not leaving her. May tells him to stop thinking about her. Those people need Spider-Man. They need her nephew. Peter says he's not going to lose her. May tells him she's so proud of him, of everything he's done, all the people he's helped. Some part of her all this time knew. She knew that he was Spider-Man. The late nights, the constant secrets, it was all because he was doing the right thing. She tells him that Uncle Ben would also be so proud of him. Peter cries. He screams. He says he's not leaving. He doesn't care. He's not leaving her. He can't leave her. May tells him to go. Be the hero that she knows he is. Be Spider-Man. But Peter can't. He tries to force himself to stand up, but he can't. He can't lose May as well. But May tells him to go. Go now before it's too late. Peter says, "I love you," quivering in his voice as he stands up and leaps off the edge of the building, knowing that he has to save all of those people. May Parker watches on as her nephew swings into the distance, proud of the man that he's become. A single tear rolling down her cheek as she closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. Peter arrives to Feast. He can barely see in front of him. Emotions cloud his every sense, except for one, his spider sense. He dials into it like never before, and it allows him to lead him to the bombs, deactivating one by one, saving everyone inside. Hundreds of people saved by Spider-Man. And as the last bomb is deactivated, just in the nick of time, we cut to black. A news broadcast leads us back into the episode, as it reports the release of Roderick Kingsley from prison, because the real Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, has finally been arrested and brought to justice. Unfortunately, there was one casualty that Spider-Man failed to save: May Parker, beloved aunt and head of the Feast Centre. We cut to outside the Feast Centre, as a memorial plaque is put up in her honour. The reporter says her funeral is set to take place later today. We then cut over to May's funeral. It's sombre, the camera movements slow. Peter stands there with an umbrella as the vicar gives a speech. MJ links arms with him and places her head on his shoulder for comfort. Peter sheds a tear. In the background we see Gwen Stacy, who has returned to New York for her funeral. She gives Peter one last hug as they see each other for the first time in over a year. We also see hiding away in a tree in the background Ben Reilly, who also heard of the news and sheds a tear in her passing. A great woman was lost that day. We cut as we hear our first words from Peter since it happened. He looks towards his Spider-Man costume as we cut to him sat in his bedroom. This mask has brought him nothing but pain, suffering, guilt, and regret. But Uncle Ben and Aunt May wouldn't want him to be any other way. Uncle Ben taught him responsibility, but Aunt May taught him that it's okay to carry on. It's okay to accept that you can't save everyone. Her death isn't a reason to stop being Spider-Man, but a reason to carry on. Peter Parker is Spider-Man more than ever, and will live on in her name. In this series of events, we also get a short shot of a letter which tells us that the house is also getting sold. It's the end of an era. We then cut one last time to Midtown High, as everyone is saying their goodbyes on their final day. Flash sees Peter in the hallway. They handshake, as Flash tells Peter good luck on the future. Flash then says what the heck and brings Peter in for a hug. It's nice. Flash places his hand on Peter's shoulder and says he's sorry for all the torment he gave him, and he's really going to miss him actually. Peter says he will too. Peter tells him good luck in the military. Flash nods as he walks off in the other direction. Peter sees Liz and approaches her. He says that he knows they didn't always see eye to eye, but he hopes she's okay. Liz says thanks and tells Peter good luck with whatever he's doing. Peter smiles as she leaves. And finally, Peter sees MJ. They give each other a hug as Peter asks if she's ready for acting school. She says no, but she's excited. Peter says he hopes he still gets to see her, and MJ says of course, she's staying in New York after all. MJ asks him if he's decided what he wants to do, and he says that he doesn't think college would work for his stay-up-all-night superhero. He says he'll figure it out. We then cut to Peter entering Frontline, as Robbie wanted to see him. Robbie says that he knows he's only worked here for a short time, but wanted to offer Peter a full-time job as a photographer. Peter is surprised and thanks Robbie. Robbie says he's just left school and with everything going on with his aunt, I bet he needs something to latch onto. Plus, he's the best photographer in the business. Peter couldn't be happier as he shakes Robbie's hand. Something positive for Peter to think about. Robbie says he only met his aunt a few times, but she was a good woman, and he's truly sorry for her loss. Peter says thank you to Robbie. She'd appreciate that. Robbie smiles as Peter leaves his office. We cut to 3 months later. Peter is setting up his new apartment, as he now has the money to afford to do so. Peter is on the phone with MJ, as she's telling him about how the first week of her acting classes are going. She says that they're going great. Peter says that's good, as his radio beeps in the distance. There's a crime going down near Central Park. He says he's going to have to go. MJ asks if it's Spider-Man stuff. Peter says yeah. She lets him go, as Peter puts on his costume, as he leaps out the window. Spider-Man gracefully swings through the New York City skyline elegantly. He's their protector. He's their savior. He truly is the spectacular Spider-Man. And with that, I bring you to the end of Spectacular Spider-Man. It has been one hell of a ride. I've really enjoyed this series. However, this is not the end. That may be the end of the series. However, it's not the end of the Spectacular Spider-Man story. Of course, I am going to be making 3 more Spectacular Spider-Man stories. And that, of course, will be the College Spider-Man trilogy, following the same character at the end of Season 5. So we've got 3 more movies with this character, and I'm really excited to get going on the College trilogy. I can give you the title of the first one, which will be coming very soon in a few weeks. It will be called Spectacular Spider-Man and the Death of Jean DeWolf. Hopefully you guys are excited, and I can't wait to enter this new era of Spectacular Spider-Man with you guys. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, and peace.